Welcome back, everyone. It's FNews57 here. I'm back on Neverwinter on the Xbox One. So today, we're very close to having Mod 11, a few more days, and the video that I'm doing is just a brief overview of the control wizard and changes getting ready for Mod 11, or going into Mod 11. Everybody asked me to update my build for 10.5. However, some of the gear was time gated and basically could only have been obtained at max a couple weeks ago, so there was no point in doing a full 45-minute video build for this. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go over changes that I made in 10.5, minor tweaks to my Mod 10 build, and share a few thoughts going into Mod 11. Hopefully this will clear up some issues that people have had with the control wizard. So to start out, I've got my character to 4K, as most of you know. Now, I am using, currently, right now, this is my farming gear, not my tryhard gear. I did go with the Mana Seeker set, which is the mod 10.5 relic weapons. They are stronger than, say, your twisted weapons, unless you have them min-maxed, but that's something that I'll talk about later. Still have my elemental dragonflight. The only piece that I would swap out and have intentions of swapping out is the Wardborn Executioner robes. Still have my +5 Ring of Rising Lifesteal, +4 Brutality. Still running the full Valindra set. If you don't want to run the full Valindra set, that's understandable. You can run the Lost Mouth Neck Valindra's Belt and then replace the artifact of your choosing. My enchantments and everything have remained the same. Nothing much has changed there. The only thing that has changed in gear is depending upon what I am doing. Unfortunately, the lantern is bugged. It still is bugged even in Mod 11 on PC. And it is not giving the damage buff that it should be. It's giving about 8% as opposed to 16%. So depending upon what I'm doing, you will see that I also have a Wheel of the Elements at Mythic. And I will swap out my Belial's Portal Stone and use the Wheel of the Elements for certain try-hard dungeons like, say, FBI. While we're on this screen, you can see, and if you haven't seen my video on relic gear, I made a guide on relic gear, and I do have the full set of Vivified Mana Seeker's Raid gear. This is my try-hard gear. This gear at tier 3 is definitely better than any of the other gear, but that combat timer is really annoying. So I'll only equip this gear when I really am doing, like I said before, tryharding. So FBI, MSVA, or if you're doing like a DPS competition or something. If you have this gear, great. If you don't already have this gear, don't fret about it. It's very expensive to get a marginal stat increase compared to just using your Dragonflight or Drow or other item level 150 pieces. Since it is my tryhard gear, you can see that I do have a Dark enchantment in the utility slot as opposed to XP gain enchantments. Very shortly after we get Mod 11, I will be upgrading my relic weapons to Legendary. You can see I almost have the marks that I need, but not quite. So nothing's really changed there on gear. There was a couple changes that I made on powers. You can see my loadout in my power tray. I have Icy Terrain, Sudden Storm, Steel Time, and Conduit of Ice. This is my default loadout for most dungeons. If I need to go single target, I will swap Steel Time for Disintegrate. The only main change that I have made is instead of using Chilling Cloud, which is a very good power, it's a very good at will, but now that we're starting to get towards end game and speed runs, Chilling Cloud has a very slow cast time and an even slower travel time from where you cast it to when it hits the target. So it started to become a hindrance in proccing spell twisting. I have, because of that, switched to Magic Missile, which does a similar amount of damage, actually a little bit more, so you gain about, I don't know, overall a few percentage extra damage, especially if you go through the full rotation and let the third strike hit, which hits 3 times. And it has a faster travel speed than, well, your Chilling Cloud. So I changed the at will, but that's basically all I've changed in that aspect. Going into mod 11, I do plan on removing the point from Frigid Winds and placing the point back into 5 of 5 on Icy Veins. Frigid Winds has been helpful, but just not quite enough. So I plan on doing that. Really no other changes to power points. We'll see when mod 11 gets here. I might be putting points into Learned Spellcaster as opposed to Predigestation. Boons pretty much all stay the same. Companions pretty much all stay the same. I have the Air Archon, the Aranese of Belial. Ignore my Remoraz. I would normally swap him out, except I was farming. I would swap him out with the Fire Archon, the Siege Master, and my summoned is the Con Artist. I do have good rings for him now. I will be looking at the companion gear rings once we finally have mod 11. If you do not have the rings that are good for the Con Artist, you may wish to go with the Cell Sword or Rebel Mercenary. They basically are the same thing, except they have 3 offensive slots and they use different gear as opposed to 3 rings, but they provide the same debuff. You could also use an Air Archon or Fire Archon as your main companion and then run something else, maybe a Wild Hunt Rider or a Death Salad or something like that as the additional companion, but that's up to you. Mounts have changed a little bit since my mod 10 video. As you can see, I do have a legendary mount there. Finally, oh, that took me so long to get. I'm very, very happy about that. I understand if you don't have a legendary mount, so don't freak out. But if you do, Dominant Force for 4,000 power. Of course, the 140 movement speed. And then for your mount insignia bonuses, I like to have Vampire's Craving. You could swap Vampire's Craving with Gladiator's Guile if you were going to be running Tryhard, but that is just personal preference. I love the additional healing that comes off of this. Then I run Assassin's Covenant, which takes away 10% of your defense deflected lifesteal, but you gain that combination of lost stats as power, which is fantastic. This does not scale with buffs. It's only off of your base amount, not what is added from Protector's Camaraderie, which is the next one that I run that gives me increased power and defense when my companion attacks. Then I have Magistrate's Patience, which is a damage over time every time that I crit, and it scales with your power. So right now unbuffed, it's only 858 psychic damage every second, but when I'm fully buffed, it can be a couple thousand damage or more every second. And of course, Artificer's Persuasion, because I use my main artifact literally like all the time, and that gives me a buff for 15 seconds. That also again scales depending upon your power and everything. But right now it's 3,432 recovery, movement, action point gain, and stamina gain. The stamina gain is useless, and the movement isn't really that great, but the recovery and action point gain are awesome. So those are the few minor things that have changed. A lot of people ask me about my enchantments, so I'm going to touch on that briefly. I run a negation as my armor enchantment. I prefer this. However, if you are squishy or you are running, say, FBI, maybe MSVA, you might want to use a Soul Forge. Even a low level, a lesser Soul Forge or a regular Soul Forge is good enough. It doesn't have to be a Transcendent, so you can easily swap that out again if you're going to try hard, or run the Soul Forge on your try hard gear, run it on your relic gear. It's up to you, totally personal preference. I prefer the negation because of its stacking damage resistance, incoming healing, and recovery. That recovery is a big thing, because that can stack up to 10 times, so it's 10% recovery. Also, everybody has been asking, what are we going to do with mod 11 coming out? I run a Transcendent Dread. Now, for now, I still run my Transcendent Dread. I have been working on a lightning enchantment that I am going to test. I'm not saying at this time the lightning enchantment will be better or not, but I'm going to test it and try it. Personally, I believe for the Control Wizard Spellstorm Thaumaturge build, you will be fine still using a dread enchantment, due to the fact that we are going to remain stacking crit. It is not like you are going to swap all of your enchantments out and stack pure power. You're still going to need crit. And the reason why you're going to need crit is a very large percentage of our damage comes from this active spell right here, Storm Spell. 30% chance, which is basically 30% of the time that you crit, you will hit Storm Spell. And that's additional damage, and quite a bit of that additional damage. Plus, we spam encounter powers, so the Dread enchantment with its debuff and additional critical hit damage for encounter powers is pretty much a awesome no-brainer. You know, it's fantastic. But I'm going to test the lightning just to humor everybody. One last thing. While the Underdark rings will not work on companions in mod 11, if you do not have better rings, but you have +5 Underdark rings, know that at least you'll be able to still use the offensive slots. But if you happen to, I would run some FBI, MSVA, SVA, and try and get your hands on like the Greater Astorian Ring of Dodd, because that's a really good ring. That is the one ring that I have changed on this companion, and of course it will work in mod 11, but I'll be going for some of the mod 11 companion gear as well, since I do have other companions that I can swap out, just depending on what works best. I will be updating both my Control Wizard build and my Paladin builds come mod 11. Please do bear with me though, because I don't get this gear any earlier than anyone else, so it does take time to actually get the gear, record, and upload the video and everything. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and this cleared up questions on what I did and did not change on my wizard. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I'll get back to everybody. If you liked the video, smash the like button. Don't forget to share it with a friend. And of course, subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay frosty.